Hi, Deirdre Macnamara here from Letterkenny IT. We're just going to do a quick video here on looking at the HighLow method, which is a method of separating out variable and fixed costs. So looking at how cost has reacted to changes in sales volume or production volumes in the past, the HighLow method is a statistical method that establishes a cost to sales volume relationship. So it looks specifically at how cost changes when the sales volume goes up or goes down. So the relationship is expressed in terms of a cost function, and with this method we'll actually create a cost function. So the HighLow method, as the name suggests, focuses on the highest and the lowest levels of activity or sales volume or production volume within the relevant range over a certain time period. So the total cost at these two extreme levels of activities is recorded, and the difference in those costs is attributed to the behaviour of the variable cost element. So the difference between the lowest and the highest will be because of the variable cost element. The fixed cost element will not have changed. And the process seeks to calculate this variable cost element. And once you've calculated the variable cost element, you can then use that to plug it back in and work out a cost function, which can then be used to predict other costs at different levels of activity. So a cost function is laid out in this format. So the total cost is equal to fixed cost plus unit costs multiplied by the activity level. And it's generally expressed in this way here. Y is your total cost equals A, which is your fixed cost, plus B, which is your unit cost, multiplied by the current activity level or the projected activity level. So the HighLow method has four distinct steps. Step number one, pick out the highest and the lowest activity levels and work out the costs at each of these levels, or pick out the costs at each of these levels. Looking at the highest activity levels and the lowest activity levels, take the low from the high and work out what the difference is there. And then looking at the costs for the same points, work out the difference between the high level and the low level. So once you've got these two figures, the differences between the costs and the difference between the activity levels, divide the difference in the cost by the difference in the activity levels. And this actually gives us the variable cost, which is the first thing that we were trying to establish. And this is B in our cost function. So using this variable cost that we've just calculated, we take either the high level or the low level, it doesn't matter which of them you used, and we put back in the information that we know, which is the variable cost. So knowing what total cost is, then we can then, using algebra, calculate out the fixed cost element. So that's the actual steps. It's a lot easier to understand it when we actually work through an example. So we'll now go through a simple example. So this example is based on establishing the relationship between overhead costs of repairs and maintenance in a hotel to the occupancy levels of the hotel. So in January there were 600 rooms sold and the repairs and maintenance were 5,000. March 800 rooms, 5,800. May 900, 6,000, etc., etc. So step number one says we need to pick out the highest. So that looks like May. May is the highest, so that's the 900 here. That's the highest, and then pick out the lowest. So July is the lowest. Okay, and we then need to establish our cost function. So we've got our highest and our lowest, and we also need to record the costs for these points. So the 900, at 900 rooms sold, the maintenance cost was 6,000, and in July at 300 it was 4,200. So step number one, pick out the highest and the lowest, and then step number two is find the difference. So at the high level activity with 900, at the low level of activity we had 300, and the difference between the 900 and the 300 is 600. Okay, looking at the cost side of things, 6,000 at the highest level, 4,200 at the lowest level, and the difference between the 6,000 and the 4,200 is 1,800. Step number three says divide the difference in the cost, which is your 1,800, by the difference in the activity. So that's 1,800 divided by 600, and that gives us €3. So it is costing us a variable cost of €3 per room sold. Okay, and that's the variable cost per unit. Step number 4 says use this €3 per unit, or the variable cost that you've just calculated, to work out what the fixed cost is. So we know that our total cost is equal to fixed cost plus the variable cost times the number of units or rooms sold. So y equals a plus bx. We know what b is, so we put in the value that we have for b. So looking here at the high activity level, so the total cost at this high activity level was 6,000. We put that in. We put in what we know. We know that's 6,000. Why? The total cost is 6,000 equals A. We don't know what fixed cost is, but we know the other bits. We know that variable cost here is €3, so we put that in, and we know what the volume of activity was, which is 900. So we have all the pieces. The only piece we don't have is the fixed cost. So then we multiply the 3 by the 900 and we get 2,700. And then we want to isolate the A, so we bring it over the equals. So that's 6,000 minus 2,700 is 3,300. So our fixed cost is 3,300. So we now have established a cost function that says our total cost will be 3,300, which is our fixed cost, plus €3 times whatever the activity level. And we can use this in the future if we're wondering, if we sold 1,000 rooms, how much would total cost be? And we could calculate it out by putting in the 1,000 here, and then we could calculate out our total cost. Okay, that's the end of this video.